Have you ever felt like the world expects you to stop needing affection after a certain age, as if love, desire, and closeness are only reserved for the young? The truth is, intimacy does not retire. It doesn't vanish with wrinkles or gray hair. If anything, the need for genuine emotional and physical connection grows deeper with age. Too many people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond have been silently convinced that yearning for touch or partnership is something to be ashamed of, or worse, ignored altogether. But here's the truth. Wanting to be seen, held, or loved is not about sex alone. It is about being human. Intimacy after 60 is not about performance. It's about presence. It's not about proving anything. It's about connection, comfort, and being emotionally safe with someone. And yet so many seniors bury that desire, fearing judgment, rejection, or the belief that those days are behind me. They're not. If you've ever felt lonely in a full house, longed for a warm embrace, or wondered if it's too late to feel passion again, this message is for you. Intimacy matters, deeply, not because of what it leads to, but because of what it restores inside of you. This isn't about reigniting some youthful fantasy. It's about reclaiming your right to be close, to love, and to be loved, gently, respectfully, and without shame. Let's talk about it. Intimacy. Truth 1. It's not about sex. It's about connection. For many people, especially as they get older, the word intimacy still triggers a narrow definition, one rooted in physical acts, performance, or sexual expectations. But the deeper truth, often learned with age, is that real intimacy goes far beyond the bedroom. In fact, after 60, intimacy becomes less about sex itself and more about the human need for connection, recognition, and emotional presence. In youth, intimacy can feel like a spark, exciting, intense, physical. But in later life, it often becomes something softer but no less powerful. A deep need to be close to someone not just skin to skin, but soul to soul. It's about the warmth of a hand on yours during a hard day. It's about someone really listening, not to respond, but to understand. It's about knowing you matter, that someone sees you fully, even as your body changes, even as your roles in life shift. One of the biggest lies society tells older adults is that the need for touch, closeness, or emotional connection somehow expires. That it becomes inappropriate, unnecessary, or unrealistic. As a result, many seniors push those needs aside, burying them under layers of independence or fear of embarrassment. But denying that longing doesn't make it go away. It only deepens the loneliness. Here's the truth. You can be surrounded by family, friends, even a partner, and still feel profoundly alone if connection is missing. What many people over 60 crave is not sex for the sake of sex, but meaningful intimacy, the kind that's rooted in safety, tenderness, respect, and emotional availability. This can look like sharing stories from the past without being brushed off. It can look like cuddling on the couch without pressure. It can look like someone rubbing your back while you cry. It can be laughter over dinner, silence in the same room, or the comfort of being held, not out of duty, but desire. When intimacy is redefined this way, it becomes liberating. There is no pressure to perform, no comparison to younger selves, no need to prove attraction or youth. It is about being seen and accepted in your full truth, wrinkles, stretch marks, quiet days, and all. This kind of connection heals. It restores dignity, softens emotional scars, and reminds us that we are still worthy of being cherished. In fact, studies show that older adults who maintain close, emotionally intimate relationships report better mental health, greater life satisfaction, and even stronger immune function. So if you find yourself longing for a deeper kind of closeness, please know this: you're not needy, you're not living in the past. You're human. Don't settle for isolation wrapped in politeness. Don't let anyone, not society, not your children, not even your own doubts, convince you that intimacy is out of reach. It may not look like it did at 30, but it can feel even more real now. Because at this stage of life, connection isn't about the chase, it's about peace, and peace is what intimacy truly offers. You deserve that. Intimacy. Truth, Chapter 2. Touch is still powerful. Even if it looks different. Touch is one of the first ways we learn to communicate as human beings. A hug calms a crying baby. A hand on the shoulder reassures a nervous child. And in our older years, touch does not lose its value, it becomes more essential. Yet many adults over 60 find themselves increasingly touch-deprived, not because they do not crave connection, but because society often forgets that older people still need, and deeply deserve, physical affection. As we age, our bodies may change, slow down, or ache. But our skin still remembers, our nervous system still responds. A warm embrace, a gentle handhold, or even a kind pat on the back can activate deep feelings of safety, care, and emotional closeness. Touch is not just a physical act, it is a form of emotional nourishment, a language without words. But here's the hard part. Many seniors stop receiving this kind of contact. Spouses pass away, children grow busy, social circles shrink. People become hesitant, even awkward, about expressing affection toward older adults. Some worry it might be weird or that older people no longer want it. Others assume independence means isolation. That assumption is wrong and harmful. Physical affection is not about dependence, it is about humanity. Studies have shown that touch helps reduce stress, lower blood pressure, increase oxytocin levels, the bonding hormone, and combat loneliness. It supports immune function and improves sleep. It reminds us, quite simply, that we're not alone. After 60, touch may not always come from romantic partners. And it doesn't have to. It can come from grandchildren hugging you tight, from a friend who reaches across the table to squeeze your hand, from a neighbor offering a steadying arm on the stairs. It can come from massage therapy, group classes with physical interaction like Tai Chi or partner dance, or even from cuddling a beloved pet. The form may change, but the meaning remains. Too often, older adults begin to internalize the idea that touch is no longer for them, that it belongs only to the young, the partnered, the able-bodied. But that is not true. You have the right to say, "I need to be held," to seek comfort, to crave human contact. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of strength, of self-awareness, of knowing what brings healing. And let's be honest, sometimes the absence of touch hurts more than words. It leaves a silent ache. It makes you feel invisible. That is why it is vital to advocate for your own needs, even in small ways. You can say to someone close, "Would you mind giving me a hug?" You can reach out instead of waiting. You can choose environments that encourage closeness, community centers, faith gatherings, wellness groups, instead of resigning to solitude. You deserve to be touched with kindness. To be reminded that your body, no matter how it looks or moves, is still worthy of love. You are still here, still alive, still needing connection. Let the world see that. Let yourself believe it. Intimacy. Truth. 3. Emotional intimacy matters more than ever. When people think about intimacy, their minds often jump straight to physical closeness, sex, touch, affection. But true intimacy, especially in the later stages of life, goes far deeper than the physical. It's about being seen. It's about being known. It's about feeling emotionally safe and deeply understood, not just loved, but accepted exactly as you are. For many people over 60, emotional intimacy becomes even more important than physical connection. Why? Because with age comes a different kind of wisdom. The understanding that time is precious, that connection must be meaningful, and that conversations from the heart are often more nourishing than anything else. But here's the catch. Emotional intimacy is not automatic. It requires trust, vulnerability, and a space free of judgment. And for many older adults, this kind of openness can be difficult, especially if they were raised in cultures or families where feelings were not often discussed. Generations past often taught strength as silence and endurance as emotional suppression. But emotional suppression is not strength. It is survival, and it comes at a cost. What does emotional intimacy look like? It's the ability to share your fears without shame. To admit when you feel lonely. To talk about the things that make you feel alive or the things that make you feel lost. It's sitting with someone who listens, really listens, without rushing to fix you. It's knowing that you can speak from the heart and still be held with compassion. This kind of connection can happen in many forms. It might be with a longtime partner, where you finally open up about fears around aging, about the ways your body is changing, or the dreams you still quietly carry. It might be with a close friend, sharing grief over a mutual loss. It could be with a therapist or support group, finally putting words to emotions you've buried for years. It could even be a quiet moment of journaling, being emotionally intimate with yourself. But too often, seniors settle for surface-level relationships, out of habit, out of fear, out of not wanting to burden others. They talk about the weather, the news, the doctor visits, but not about the ache of loneliness, the need for affection, the spiritual questions, or the regrets that still linger. You do not have to carry all of that alone. It is never too late to open your heart again, to deepen the relationships you have, or to seek new ones that meet you on an emotional level. Sometimes that means initiating uncomfortable but necessary conversations. Sometimes it means being honest about what you need, even if it feels vulnerable. That honesty is not weakness. It's a gift to yourself and to those who love you. And emotional intimacy doesn't just improve your mental well-being. It impacts your physical health too. Research shows that people with close emotional bonds have lower rates of depression, better immune function, and even longer lifespans. Why? Because being emotionally connected tells your nervous system, you're safe, you belong. So if you feel unseen, unheard, emotionally distant, do not write it off as just aging. It's not inevitable. It's a signal. A call to re-engage with your emotional needs. That might mean reaching out to a friend you've lost touch with, or writing a heartfelt letter to your children. Or simply looking someone in the eye and saying, I miss real conversation. You still deserve that. You still deserve connection that touches the soul, not just the surface. Emotional intimacy does not fade with age. It deepens. If you allow it, if you seek it, if you value it enough to say, I am more than my memories. I still want to be known, and you can be. Intimacy. Truth. 4. You're allowed to redefine what sex means. For many older adults, the idea of sex becomes wrapped in outdated definitions, unrealistic expectations, and quiet shame. Our culture tends to treat sex as something that belongs to the young, something flashy, fast, and always physical. But the truth, real intimacy, especially after 60, often looks different. And that difference does not make it less meaningful. In fact, it can make it more profound. Sex after 60 is not a lesser version of what came before. It is a deeper version, if you allow it to be. It is less about performance and more about presence. Less about proving and more about connecting. And it starts by giving yourself permission to redefine what sex means to you now in this season of life. Maybe penetration is no longer comfortable or desirable. Maybe health conditions or medications have changed your body's responsiveness. Maybe you or your partner are experiencing physical limitations, fatigue, or hormonal shifts. These are not failures. They are normal evolutions of the human experience. And they do not have to be the end of your sensual life. They can be the beginning of a new chapter. This chapter might include longer cuddling, intentional touch, slower undressing, shared laughter, deep eye contact, or quiet holding. It might mean sensual massage, mutual care, and emotional vulnerability. It could involve gentle exploration or simply falling asleep skin to skin. There is no formula. There is no should. There is only what feels true and safe and warm for both of you. One of the great freedoms of aging is the ability to leave behind scripts that never really served us. We are no longer bound by youthful insecurity, by media fantasies, by roles we had to play when we were younger. Now, we can build intimacy on our own terms, with comfort, honesty, and joy. But here is the catch. It requires communication. Open, brave, sometimes awkward communication. It means being willing to say, "I miss feeling close," or "This part of our connection matters to me," or even, "I am nervous, but I want to try." These conversations are not always easy, especially if you come from a generation where sex was taboo, but they are worth it, because avoiding the topic only creates distance. Addressing it, gently and respectfully, can rebuild bridges you thought were gone. And if you are single, widowed, or divorced, redefining sex is still your right. Intimacy is not reserved for couples. You can seek connection through new relationships or even through self-discovery, self-touch, and reclaiming pleasure in your own body. You are not too old for joy, for passion, or for play. The desire for closeness does not disappear with age. It simply asks to be understood differently. Give yourself the grace to explore without shame. Laugh if it feels awkward. Cry if it feels healing. Start slow. Stay honest. Let go of the pressure to perform or impress. Let your body and your heart show you what it wants now, not what it used to want. Let your intimacy evolve like you have. Because sex after 60 is not a compromise, it is a celebration of presence, of softness, of choosing connection over convention. It is a reminder that love and touch are lifelong needs, not youthful indulgences. And you are allowed, fully, freely, to define what that looks like for you. Intimacy. Truth. 5. Emotional intimacy matters more than performance. There comes a point in life when you begin to realize that intimacy is far more than what happens in the bedroom. After 60, for many people, the need to impress, perform, or meet unrealistic standards begins to fade. And what remains, what becomes more essential than ever, is emotional connection. This is the truth many do not talk about enough. Emotional intimacy often becomes the heartbeat of a satisfying relationship in later life. While physical closeness may change, deepen, or even slow down, the emotional bond between partners can grow stronger, more nourishing, and even more thrilling. What does emotional intimacy look like? It is being able to share without fear. It is the comfort of sitting in silence with someone and feeling completely understood. It is laughing together over small things. It is reaching out during moments of doubt and knowing the other person will hold space for your vulnerability without judgment. It is connection without conditions. When you are younger, intimacy often revolves around chemistry, performance, or the excitement of newness. But after 60, true intimacy shifts toward depth. It becomes about presence, being fully seen, heard, and accepted. It is not about chasing perfection. It is about relaxing into trust. In fact, research shows that emotional closeness is one of the strongest predictors of relationship satisfaction in older adults. It is the emotional security that gives us strength to weather life's storms, including illness, loss, aging, and change. A partner who listens, who cares, who truly knows you, is often more valuable than any spark from youth. But this kind of intimacy does not just happen, it takes intention. It requires you to show up with your full self, your stories, your scars, your hopes, your fears. It asks that you remain curious about each other even after decades, that you stay open to evolving together rather than growing apart. Sometimes emotional intimacy is built through small daily rituals, morning coffee chats, holding hands during a walk, or writing notes of appreciation. Other times, it requires more effort, such as learning to communicate more clearly, going to counseling, or simply saying, "I'm sorry" when it matters most. And if you are single or widowed, emotional intimacy is still yours to claim. It may be found in friendships, in family connections, or even in the honest relationship you build with yourself. Emotional closeness does not rely on romance, it relies on authenticity. Too often, older adults feel pressured to keep up with youthful ideas of intimacy. They are told to reignite the spark or get their groove back. But maybe what truly matters is not the flame, but the warmth of being seen, the comfort of being loved as you are, the safety of being enough. You are not your performance, you are your presence. And that presence is the gift. Emotional intimacy is not flashy, it does not make headlines, but it is what keeps love alive through the hardest seasons of life. So let go of the pressure, let go of comparison. Lean into connection, conversation, and care. Because in the quiet spaces of shared life, emotional intimacy whispers the truth we all long to hear. You are not alone, and you are loved exactly as you are. Intimacy. Truth. 6. Talking about sex doesn't end after 60. Let us be clear. Turning 60 does not mean turning off desire. It does not mean the end of romance, attraction, curiosity, or the need for closeness. And it certainly does not mean you should stop talking about sex. Yet for many older adults, the topic becomes a source of silence, buried under embarrassment, assumptions, or outdated beliefs about what intimacy should look like in later life. Here is the truth. Open conversations about sex and intimacy after 60 are not just important, they are essential, especially in long-term relationships, or when entering new ones after divorce or loss. Communication is the bridge that keeps connection alive. Why do so many stop talking about it? Because we were taught that aging means decline, not growth. We were told that sexual expression has an expiration date, that physical changes make sex irrelevant or even impossible. And these lies keep many older adults trapped in shame, confusion, or isolation. But here is the powerful shift. When you begin to talk openly about intimacy in your later years, you reclaim your agency. You create space for honesty. You make it okay to ask questions, express needs, and even explore new possibilities without apology. In fact, studies show that older adults who talk openly about their intimacy needs report greater relationship satisfaction and self-esteem. They feel more connected to their partners, they feel seen, and they feel empowered. It is not about trying to act like you are 25 again. It is about creating a relationship, sexual or otherwise, that reflects who you are now. A relationship built on real communication, not assumptions. On mutual respect, not outdated roles. So what should these conversations look like? They might begin with vulnerability. I've been feeling distant lately, and I miss our connection. Or curiosity. What do you think about trying something new? Or honesty. Some things have changed for me physically. Can we talk about what still feels good? You do not need to be poetic or perfect. You need to be real. Yes, changes in libido, hormones, or physical ability are natural with age, but that is exactly why communication matters more now than ever. When you talk, you create space for understanding. You take pressure off performance and focus instead on connection. And most of all, you remove shame from the equation. Also, do not limit the conversation to sex alone. Talk about affection, about touch, about what makes you feel loved. Sometimes a kiss on the forehead or a hand held at the right moment can feel more intimate than anything else. Sometimes it is about reclaiming joy, not just in your body, but in being wanted, being chosen, being known. And if you are single, the same truth applies. Talking about sex, whether with a potential partner or a trusted friend or even your doctor, is part of honoring your full self. Your sexuality does not disappear just because society tells you to be quiet about it. It evolves, like every other part of you, and you deserve to explore it with dignity, safety, and confidence. So let us say it clearly. Talking about sex after 60 is not awkward, it is mature, it is not embarrassing, it is courageous. It is not unnecessary, it is necessary. You have spent decades caring for others. Now is the time to care for your own pleasure, comfort, and fulfillment. It begins with a conversation. One honest word at a time. Intimacy. Truth. 7. Your body is still worthy of touch, pleasure, and celebration. There is a lie many older adults have been forced to swallow quietly, that aging bodies are no longer beautiful, no longer desirable, no longer worthy of affection or sensuality. This belief, often internalized over decades, is not just false, it is cruel. And it is one of the most harmful myths that strangles joy, intimacy, and self-worth in later life. Here is the truth. Your body, at any age, is still worthy of love, touch, pleasure, and celebration. Society has done a poor job at showing us what aging looks like with dignity. In magazines, films, and even healthcare, youth is worshipped. Smooth skin is prized. Wrinkles are erased. Gray hair is hidden. Stretch marks, sagging skin, or surgical scars are treated like shameful secrets. And so, many people over 60 begin to disappear, not literally, but emotionally. They pull away from mirrors. They undress in the dark. They stop believing they can be seen and still be wanted. But intimacy in later life is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about showing up in your own skin with honesty, openness, and confidence, not because you look 30, but because you've lived 60-plus years in this miraculous body and it still holds beauty, power, and worth. Think of all your body has carried: children, illness, heartbreak, celebration, decades of motion, of healing, of showing up. How could it not be worthy of reverence? Yet many older adults feel shame around their bodies. They apologize for their bellies, their thighs, their age spots. They ask for lights to be off, shirts to stay on, or affection to stay shallow. This is not modesty. It's fear. It's the fear that we no longer belong in a space of touch and desire, but we do. In fact, studies have shown that physical affection and sexual intimacy in later life contribute to better mental health, lower rates of depression, improved sleep, and even longer lifespan. But it starts not with someone else's touch. It starts with your own permission. The permission to feel alive in your body. The permission to ask for what you want. The permission to stop waiting for perfection and start living in truth. So how do you rebuild that connection? You begin by softening your inner critic. Instead of saying, "I hate the way I look," try saying, "My body has brought me this far, thank you." You stop comparing yourself to who you were at 30 and start honoring who you are at 65. You talk to your partner honestly, or if you are single, you talk to yourself with kindness. You allow touch to come back into your life, even if it starts with a hug, a massage, or the way you gently care for yourself in the mirror. Because intimacy does not begin in the bedroom. It begins in the mirror, in the mind, in the way you carry yourself through your day. It begins with rejecting the myth that says, "You're too old for this," and replacing it with the truth. "I am still here. I am still worthy. I still deserve love." If there's one message we hope resonates, it's this: intimacy does not expire, desire does not fade with age, and your worth, physical, emotional, sensual, is not on a timer. You are still here, still alive, still deserving of touch, connection, and joy. Too many older adults have spent decades swallowing silence, hiding needs, and putting themselves last, because they were taught that love had limits and age had rules. But that story no longer serves you. You get to rewrite it. You get to say, "I am still learning. I am still growing. I still want to feel closeness, passion, affection, and I will not apologize for it. Whether you are in a relationship or single, active, or rediscovering your desires after years of dormancy, the message is the same. You are not too old to feel love deeply and freely. If anything, you are more ready now than ever. You've lived enough to know what matters. You've heard enough to crave what heals, and you've earned the right to embrace intimacy, not as a performance, but as a gift. So take back your voice. Take back your body. Take back your right to be loved, held, and wanted, because you are not invisible. You are not done, and you are most definitely not alone.